Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor, and it was a remarkable day on Capitol Hill today as members of Congress got to see that infamous FBI document that has some indication about potentially international bribery attempt to then Vice President Joe Biden. It came up during the president's joint press conference at the White House with the Prime Minister of England, and a really interesting moment happened. Here, take a look.
Wait.
The bribery allegation, Congresswoman Nancy Mace says there's damning evidence in the FBI file that you sold out the country. Do you have a response to the congressional Republicans?
Where's the money? I'm joking.
Mr. President,
It's a bunch of malarkey.
Where's the money? That's a really odd answer, but he was joking. Everything's fine. Well, you heard Congresswoman Nancy Mace was referenced there in the question about allegations she made after seeing this document, and I think it's only fair to go to Congresswoman Nancy Mace right now, a representative from South Carolina. Well, Congresswoman, quite a response from the president. I don't know if that's, I don't think his attorneys or handlers were happy with that one.
No, I don't think selling out your country is actually very funny. And I would advise and encourage the president to prove us wrong. Show us your bank records, show us your family's bank records, show us the bank records of the dozens and dozens of shell companies that were created to layer a potential bribery scheme here, because there's no reason to have that number of shell companies if you're not trying to hide something or obfuscate what's really going on. And the document that we saw today was legitimate, it was credible, and I have a lot more questions for the FBI today than I had yesterday. I want to know if it was investigated at all, and if so, how, and what members of the Biden family were also investigated, because these are millions of dollars that we're talking about here in this bribery scheme.
Yeah, and my first question about all of this, I think you're leading to it, is we all know that this is not a classified document, so why did you have to go into a SCIF to take a look at it? Why is this? Why all the secrecy and protection?
Right. Well, initially the FBI wouldn't confirm or deny, we know that line, that the document even existed. Then magically it appeared. Then the Oversight Committee members weren't allowed to see it. And then only at one point 2 members were allowed to see it. And then today, all of us were allowed to see it. In the meantime, the administration obviously leaking information was trying to discredit the document. We'll come to find out they don't want it to be public because they're worried about the safety of the human source and also the whistleblower. So it's just, it's been stonewalling of the American people and even the mainstream media. Everyone in the media should be able to see this. And if you were to see what I saw today, you'd want to know where they are in the investigation. And it's quite legitimate, it's quite credible, and it was damning evidence.
Your colleague, Jamie Raskin, a Democrat from Maryland, I think he's the ranking member on your Oversight Committee, he said earlier this week that this has already been investigated by the Justice Department and the FBI. They disregarded it. They said there was nothing there. Although, of course, former Attorney General Bill Barr has contradicted that. What's happening there?
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly respect Jamie Raskin. He's very smart on constitutional issues. However, what he said is simply not true. We heard from former attorney Bill Barr this week saying that, in fact, it was sent off to be investigated. I would like to know what happened to that investigation, if that investigation is ongoing. And in fact, when Congressman Comer and Congressman Raskin met with the FBI on Monday, they were told repeatedly that there was an investigation and that it was ongoing. So someone is not telling the truth, and it's certainly not the Republicans on the Oversight Committee. We are 100% being full board with the American people, trying to share as much information as we can because they deserve to know the truth.
I've heard people in this town, media analysts, say, you know, listen, the FBI, they get tips and stuff all the time from crackpots and conspiracy theorists. This is just one more. What do we know about the source here of this allegation?
Well, based on the information that I read today in the document, it is a credible source. The whistleblower is also credible, which is why the FBI is protecting the document, because they want to protect both the source and the whistleblower. And if you were to read what I read today, you would also be asking yourself, this is evidence, this is legitimate, this is credible. Why hasn't it been investigated to the fullest extent of the law? And look, I've been someone to call the balls and strikes since I came to Congress. I don't care if you have an R or a D by your name. If you've broken the law, if you are corrupt, I want it investigated. I've held members of our own party in contempt. I mean, I'm just, I try to do it straight down the middle and be very circumspect and honest with the American people. And I have more questions now than I had before.
Well,
and it's unconscionable that the FBI hasn't investigated to the fullest extent of the law.
The fact that you do call balls and strikes on issues important like this is the reason why you were the #1 person on our list to have tonight. So I think that it lends even that much more credibility. And by the way, the president's response here, hey, you know, laughing it off, it's all a bunch of malarkey. If he's that confident that there's nothing wrong here, I would think that he could call for full transparency. He could order the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI to release everything to you and to the American people. He surely has nothing to hide.
Right. And it was $5 million per Biden. I mean, that's what we saw in the document. We're going to go and investigate bank records. I want to go back to the Treasury and re-look at the suspicious activity reports. There's more to look for, I think, in search and find. And we want to follow the facts. And if this is not illegal, it should be. This kind of thing should not be going on in our country right now.
Yeah. I should ask you, though, if in fact this allegation is true, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the allegation is that millions of dollars came from this foreign country. Do we know for sure that this is Ukraine and this is a company in Ukraine?
Correct.
Okay.
It is all related. This particular document is related to Ukraine. And apparently there are other 1023 documents. There are also bank records we have not been able to have access to. There are likely even more suspicious activity reports that we're unaware of. There's no end in sight in this thing, and I am encouraging the Oversight Committee to continue the investigation, follow the money, get access to the bank records for all of the shell companies. There's a reason, and in this document, it was very clear that the shell companies had a purpose. They served a purpose to hide the money, where it was coming from and where it was going to, and we've got to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, it sheds a lot of light on the president's offhanded remark, where's the money? Well, maybe that's why they had the shell corporations. Hello.
I think he's going to regret ever saying that.
But I do want to say, if this was an exchange for a policy move from Vice President Biden has no constitutional authority to change policy. That would be then President Barack Obama and his administration, his Secretary of State. So does that drag the former president into this investigation now?
I don't know about that, but certainly the Vice President of the United States can absolutely influence policy, influence legislation, influence the outcome of a vote or what direction our country takes in regards to another nation. All those things are on the table.
Has there been any indication from anyone from the FBI or from the Justice Department that there was a legitimate investigation into this allegation? You know, something that would rise to the level of, well, the investigation into Carter Page and the Trump campaign in 2016.
They did say on Monday, and I was not there, I'm basing this off of witnesses from our Oversight Committee who were in the presence of the FBI, that it is part of an investigation. Now, we don't know what investigation, which is why I have more questions than I have answers today. But this document opens up a whole lot of other issues and questions that we have. Bank records that we need to view, more suspicious activity reports that I believe we need to go back to and re-review and compare it to the information that was in that document, because it felt very legitimate, very credible. And I'm not I don't want to peddle in conspiracy theories. I have no interest in that. I quite frankly am not happy with both sides of the aisle right now for a lot of reasons. And I think that if there's corruption, it ought to be investigated. It's that simple.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace, it is that simple, and we appreciate you continuing to keep your eyes on it there on the Oversight Committee. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.